Shame on Geoffrey Hinton. I was shocked to see him tweet today about Elon Musk and how he should be expelled from the British Science Society, and just stupid attacks like he's calling Musk a Nazi who spreads conspiracy theories. I understand that this is coming. Critique like that can come from politicians, people like AOC. That's okay. I think that's their job, to spread bullshit around and please their voters and things. But from a person that considers himself a scientist, from a person that actually won the Nobel Prize in physics, to hear that is utterly unacceptable, disappointing, and shows how rotten science is. Geoffrey, you're attacking the one person in our generation which is inspiring a whole generation of young kids to go and study engineering and build things back to the 1950s type spirit that was prevalent in the United States, and I'm sure also in the UK, where you're from, when people actually built things. And now we're at a stage where the institutions that are supposed to create that knowledge and proliferate that knowledge so more kids can go and build stuff and build careers for themselves and create better things for humanity. Those institutions have become country clubs. Tuitions are through the roof. The ratio of admin to faculty is increasing in a ridiculous way. And the woke virus is destroying free speech and free thought and freedom, which is much more important actually in the academic world than even in the political world, because without freedom, there is freedom of thought. Without freedom without liberty, you can't develop new ideas. You can't actually function in an intellectual environment. So instead of criticizing that, you're attacking in a very vulgar way the one person that is single-handedly reviving a spirit of engineering and ingenuity in the United States and also across the rest of the Western world, and by the way, also China. So shame on you. I don't have any other thing to say. I'm shocked at this. It shows that you're a B+ player who was elevated into the A+ league with the stupid Nobel Prize that should have never been given to you. Look, I appreciate your work. I know you took a big risk by building neural networks at a time when there was really not much future for those. I myself studied the field in the 90s, and I actually drifted away because it was really difficult to do anything useful back then in the 90s. So I understand where you're coming from, and I always appreciated you. And the reason I'm doing this reaction podcast actually is because you're the one out of the three sort of creators of this new AI world. You're the one that I always respected because I felt like you have the humility and the scientific wherewithal to withstand all the pressures of fame and all that stuff that came with the success that you had. Versus the other two, I don't need to mention the names, but we all know who they are. They, in my opinion, went way too far and are overplaying their hand way too much. So I'm very disappointed. And the reason I'm doing this here is really for hopefully for you, but definitely for everybody else, to understand a few fundamental things. Number one, academics is rotten. Academics is rotten. You can just see it in the way tuitions are going up. You can see it in the corruption, which is proliferating all through high school and then at the college level, because the admission officers at universities have more power than even the President of the United States when it comes to the actual lives of young people. This is unacceptable. Instead of criticizing that, you are criticizing the one person which is helping young kids to get actually to productive lives by solving real problems. Just listen to the most recent Joe Rogan podcast that Elon Musk gave. Somewhere in the middle, it's about 25, 30 minutes. He talks about designing the heat shield for Starship. That is engineering in real time at a level that I, myself, a non-material engineer, a non-physics grad, understands. That is a real contribution to science. And you are criticizing him instead of criticizing your own institutions for the shameful the development that these institutions have gone. And by the way, they're all the same, whether it's Stanford or Harvard or Toronto or Oxford or Cambridge. It goes throughout the whole academic world. Tuitions are going up, and if it's not tuitions that private people pay, then it's state money which is being squandered. And all Doge is doing, what Elon Musk is doing, is cutting waste and corruption in the government, and you are attacking that. What he's doing is not cutting grants for science, he's cutting waste that is destroying science. And if you don't understand this, then you should give back your Nobel Prize. This wasteful grants, this connection between the government and fiat money, which is printed money, so basically free, unchecked money distribution towards academics, which then squander it on DEI and woke stuff, and lots of science which is useless. That needs to stop. And this is what Musk is trying to do with Doge. In fact, he's not even doing that explicitly. All he's trying to do is just save taxpayers' money. Now, that is a collateral damage, a very welcome collateral damage. Just to finish this rant, I think if you do a thought experiment, you have two, let's say you split the United States into two parts, the eastern part and the western part, and you cut it through, let's say, the continental divide line. And then you have the eastern part continues doing business the way we're doing business now. We have the Federal Reserve, we have Congress, we have trillions of deficits, and we have academia going the way it's going with higher tuitions, extremely difficult admission rates, lots of corruption, lots and lots of grant money being spent. On the west side, we have Bitcoin as a standard, so there's no free money, there's hard money. We have institutions, mostly privately financed, where there's no such thing as grant money, but there's investments. We invest in the future of knowledge. So we do investments. And investment means there is accountability. It doesn't necessarily have to be a return on investment in money terms, but there is accountability. And accountability is not measured in accolades and memberships and Nobel Prizes, but it's actually measured in products and services and jobs created. If we had these two systems and we let this experiment run for 50 years, I can guarantee you the Western side would outperform the Eastern by a huge margin. Another example, just wanted to give you, I grew up in Switzerland, and I'm very enamored actually with the Swiss model, and also with the fact that the Swiss have opted out of the EU scam and all this terrible money waste and bureaucratic nightmare that the EU has become. And the only university in continental Europe, in my opinion, that has any say in the world of STEM is the Polytech in Zurich. And that is a perfect example, actually, of how not being part of this cabal of wasteful government money can proliferate an institution to better excellence. Now, of course, the Polytech is receiving money from the Swiss government, but the Swiss government is definitely not a profligate government, and there is a lot more accountability in Switzerland when it comes to spending government money than anywhere else in the world. So I just want to point that out, and I think maybe you can lean back and take away your hatred for Trump that you have, or his treatment of the Ukraine, or whatever political reason you have, and just think about your own institution, your own work as a scientist, and what it actually means to be a scientist. If you think science is dependent on government grants, then you haven't understood one iota of science. Science is a form of inquiry, and that form of inquiry can start somewhere in a garage with a curious person trying to solve a problem. That form of inquiry does not require billions of dollars of grants. And if you think that that is what science depends on, then you're a charlatan, then you're not a scientist. So why don't you think about this? And hopefully you can find back to your senses, because I think you are, again, when it comes to the AI community, you're one of the few pillars of reason, you're one of the few pillars of humility, and I always thought that you understand what science actually means and what it really contributes to society. But with this really disappointing comments that you wrote, I see that you don't, and that you're either influenced by self-interest, or influenced by petty reaction to some political feeling that you have, which might have something to do with the actual subject of science.